The 10 toughest actors in Hollywood history. Some actors played tough. These men were tough on screen and off. They weren't just following scripts. They were drawing from real scars, real fights, and real battles. Behind the cameras, they faced wars, prison cells, street brawls, and near-death stunts. They didn't need to act because life had already hardened them. In this video, we're counting down the 10 toughest actors in Hollywood history. Not just the most famous, but the ones who actually lived what they portrayed. But first, drop a comment and tell us which actor from classic Hollywood would you never want to get into a real fight, because by the end of this video, that answer might change. Some had medals, others had mugshots, but all of them had something real behind their stare. Let's start with a man whose entire life was a masterclass in raw survival.
And which is either true or not true, or true with reservation.
Hollywood has never been short on actors who looked fearless. They charged into gunfights, stayed down villains, and survived impossible odds on screen. But every once in a while, an actor comes along whose real life is even more incredible than the characters he plays. These weren't men who relied on special effects or carefully choreographed action scenes. Long before cameras started rolling, many had already survived war, poverty, dangerous jobs, or lives that would have broken most people. Today, we're counting down 10 actors whose reputations for toughness weren't created in a movie studio. Some were decorated soldiers. Others grew up fighting just to survive. A few faced personal tragedies that would have ended ordinary careers, yet they kept coming back stronger than before. Their stories remind us that genuine toughness isn't measured by muscles or loud words. It's revealed by resilience, sacrifice, and the ability to keep moving forward when life seems impossible. Stay with us until number 2, because his story is one of the most unbelievable in Hollywood history. Even many lifelong movie fans have no idea what he endured before becoming one of cinema's biggest legends. Let's begin. Number 10. Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum never tried to convince audiences he was dangerous. He didn't need dramatic speeches or exaggerated gestures. One quiet look from Mitchum could communicate more than pages of dialogue. That calm confidence became his trademark, but it wasn't something an acting coach taught him. As a teenager, Mitchum experienced a difficult upbringing during one of America's hardest economic periods. He drifted from town to town, taking whatever work he could find to survive. Railroad yards, labor camps, and physically demanding jobs became his classroom instead of traditional education. Those experiences exposed him to people and situations that few future movie stars would ever encounter. When Hollywood finally noticed him, directors quickly realized there was something authentic about his presence. He wasn't pretending to understand hardship because he had already lived through plenty of it. His performances felt effortless because many of the emotions audiences saw were drawn from genuine experience rather than imagination. Even when controversy followed him later in life, Mitchum refused to let setbacks define his career. Instead of disappearing from public view, he returned to work with the same relaxed confidence that made him famous. That refusal to panic under pressure became one of the qualities fellow actors admired most. Many stars create an image of toughness. Robert Mitchum simply allowed people to see the man he already was. Number 9. Charles Bronson. Before Charles Bronson became one of the world's most recognizable action stars, his life looked nothing like a Hollywood success story. Born into a large family struggling with poverty, Bronson understood hard work from an early age. He spent time working in dangerous coal mines, performing exhausting labor that demanded both physical strength and mental endurance. Every day underground taught lessons no acting school could ever offer. When World War II arrived, Bronson entered military service, facing challenges far greater than anything waiting for him on a movie set. Military life strengthened the quiet discipline that would later define both his career and his personality. Unlike many celebrities, Bronson rarely searched for attention. Interviews were brief. Public appearances were limited. He preferred letting his work speak for itself. That silence actually made him more intimidating. Directors often said they never needed to ask Bronson to look tough. The cameras naturally captured the quiet confidence of someone who had already overcome real hardship. As films like Death Wish turned him into an international icon, audiences believed every punch, every stare, and every confrontation because nothing about Bronson felt artificial. His life had already taught him what determination looked like long before movie audiences ever bought a ticket. For Bronson, toughness wasn't a performance. It was simply the result of everything he had survived. Number 8. John Wayne. Few names symbolize classic Hollywood more than John Wayne. His towering screen presence helped define the American Western, but what many people don't realize is how much physical pain he often endured behind the scenes. Wayne believed audiences deserved authenticity whenever possible. He preferred performing difficult scenes himself, even when injuries made filming far more difficult than anyone realized. Colleagues frequently recalled that he disliked complaining and instead focused on finishing the day's work. As his career continued, Wayne faced increasingly serious health challenges. Major surgeries and long recoveries would have convinced many actors to retire permanently. Instead, he repeatedly returned to movie sets determined to continue doing what he loved. His determination wasn't about proving something to critics. It reflected a work ethic built over decades, a belief that commitment should be honored regardless of personal discomfort. That attitude earned respect even from people who strongly disagreed with him on political or personal issues. Many who worked beside Wayne acknowledged that whatever opinions they held about him, his willingness to push through pain was impossible to ignore. Yet perhaps the greatest test of John Wayne's toughness wasn't facing cameras at all. John Wayne's greatest battle wasn't against outlaws in the Old West. It was against his own body. Throughout the later years of his career, he dealt with major health problems while continuing to appear in demanding productions. Long filming days, horseback riding, and physically exhausting scenes became even more difficult after surgery, yet Wayne rarely allowed audiences to see that struggle. Cast and crew members often remembered that he arrived on set determined to finish the job before thinking about his own discomfort. That determination became part of his legacy. Whether people admired his films or debated his opinions, few questioned his willingness to work through adversity. His toughness wasn't measured by how loudly he spoke. It was measured by how consistently he showed up. 4 generations of movie fans, John Wayne became more than an actor. He represented perseverance, discipline, and the belief that difficult circumstances should never become excuses. Number 7, James Cagney. Standing only about 5 feet 6 inches tall, James Cagney never looked like the biggest man in Hollywood. Yet very few people underestimated him for long. Growing up in New York City meant learning how to defend yourself early. Tough neighborhoods demanded quick thinking, confidence, and the ability to stand your ground. Those lessons stayed with Cagney throughout his entire life. Before achieving fame, he developed skills as both a dancer and stage performer. That unusual combination gave him remarkable balance, speed, and precision. When audiences watched his famous gangster characters throw punches or explode with energy, those movements felt authentic because his athletic ability was genuine. Directors loved working with him because every movement looked natural. Fight scenes flowed with believable intensity, making his performances stand out from many of his contemporaries. Off-camera, friends often described Cagney as polite and surprisingly humble. But they also knew he wouldn't tolerate bullying or intimidation. He believed respect should be earned rather than demanded. His career proved that real strength has very little to do with physical size. Confidence, discipline, and courage can make someone unforgettable regardless of height. Even decades later, James Cagney remains one of Hollywood's most convincing tough guys, not because he acted tough, but because audiences sense a confidence behind every performance. Number 6, Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn's life began in extraordinary circumstances. Born during a period of political unrest, his family eventually sought new opportunities in the United States. Their early years were filled with financial hardship, forcing Quinn to take on physically demanding jobs while still very young. Construction work, manual labor, and countless difficult tasks shaped both his body and his outlook on life. Every paycheck represented effort rather than luck. As opportunities in acting slowly appeared, Quinn carried those experiences with him. He became known for throwing himself completely into every role, whether portraying a fearless warrior, a passionate artist, or a determined survivor. Unlike performers who relied solely on appearance, Quinn possessed a natural physical presence that audiences immediately believed. Directors trusted him with demanding scenes because they knew he embraced challenges instead of avoiding them. What truly separated Quinn from many action stars was his emotional depth. He could portray vulnerability one moment and overwhelming strength the next, creating characters that felt completely human. His toughness wasn't built on anger or intimidation. It came from understanding struggle, appreciating opportunity, and refusing to quit regardless of the obstacle. That balance helped Anthony Quinn build one of the most respected careers in film history. Number 5, Kirk Douglas. Few actors fought harder for success than Kirk Douglas. Born into a poor immigrant family, Douglas learned early that nothing would be handed to him. Every opportunity required determination, persistence, and relentless effort. Education became one of his first victories. Through talent and athletic ability, he earned opportunities that transformed the direction of his life. Military service during World War II further strengthened his discipline and resilience, preparing him for challenges far beyond Hollywood. Once he became a leading man, Douglas developed a reputation for giving everything to every performance. Whether filming demanding action scenes or emotionally intense dramas, he pushed himself to deliver authenticity. But the greatest demonstrations of his toughness happened away from movie cameras. Later in life, Douglas survived a devastating helicopter crash that claimed the lives of others. Just when many believed he had escaped the worst, he suffered a severe stroke that dramatically affected his speech. For countless people, that would have marked the end. Not for Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas refused to let tragedy write the final chapter of his life. After months of rehabilitation, he slowly rebuilt his strength and learned to communicate again. Every small improvement required enormous determination. Instead of hiding from the public, Douglas openly discussed his recovery, inspiring millions who were facing battles of their own. His greatest victory wasn't winning awards or starring in legendary films. It was proving that resilience can outlast even life's darkest moments. When people remember Kirk Douglas today, they remember far more than Spartacus. They remember a man who refused to surrender, no matter what obstacles stood in front of him. Number 4, Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin carried himself differently from almost everyone else in Hollywood. There was a quiet confidence in the way he walked, spoke, and looked at people. Directors noticed it immediately. Audiences did too. Before becoming a movie star, Marvin served in the United States Marine Corps during World War II. Combat exposed him to experiences that very few actors could genuinely understand. Those memories stayed with him for the rest of his life and influenced many of his performances. Unlike actors who had to imagine fear or danger, Marvin understood both. That understanding gave his characters an authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. On set, he wasn't interested in celebrity culture or elaborate publicity. He preferred professionalism and respected people who worked hard. Crew members often described him as dependable, straightforward, and intensely focused. His performances in westerns, war films, and crime dramas felt believable because he understood the emotional weight behind violence. He never portrayed conflict as glamorous. Instead, he gave audiences characters who carried invisible scars. That honesty helped make Lee Marvin one of the most respected tough guy actors of the 20th century. His greatest strength wasn't aggression, it was experience. Number 3, Steve McQueen. Few actors have ever represented effortless confidence quite like Steve McQueen. Nicknamed the King of Cool, McQueen became famous for his calm personality, fearless attitude, and willingness to take risks that left studio executives extremely nervous. His childhood wasn't easy. Family instability and difficult circumstances forced him to mature quickly. Those early struggles shaped an independent personality that remained with him throughout his career. After serving in the United States Marine Corps, McQueen entered Hollywood carrying the discipline he had learned in military life. But he also brought something else, an appetite for challenge. Cars, motorcycles, airplanes. If it moved fast, McQueen wanted to master it. Unlike many stars who relied heavily on stunt performers, he constantly pushed to perform dangerous sequences himself. Whether racing across rough terrain or filming high-speed chases, McQueen believed realism mattered. His passion for motorsports wasn't simply a hobby. Professional drivers respected his skill behind the wheel, proving his abilities extended well beyond movie sets. Studios often worried about his safety because every injury threatened expensive productions. McQueen understood those concerns but rarely allowed fear to dictate his decisions. To him, life was meant to be lived at full speed. That fearless approach helped transform Steve McQueen into one of Hollywood's greatest legends, a man whose courage felt genuine because much of it truly was. Number 2, Charlton Heston. When audiences watched Charlton Heston command the screen in epic productions, they saw strength, leadership, and confidence. What many didn't realize was that those qualities had been shaped long before Hollywood made him famous. Before becoming one of cinema's biggest stars, Heston served in the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. The discipline he learned during military service stayed with him throughout his life and career. On movie sets, Heston developed a reputation for remarkable endurance. Massive historical epics demanded long hours under harsh conditions, wearing heavy costumes while performing physically demanding scenes. Rather than searching for easy alternatives, Heston embraced those challenges. Even serious health problems later in life failed to completely stop him. Many actors would have quietly stepped away after major surgeries and long recoveries. Heston continued working, determined to honor his commitments and contribute however he could. His professionalism became legendary among directors and fellow actors alike. But despite everything Charlton Heston endured, one man on our list experienced hardships so extraordinary that Hollywood itself struggled to believe his story. Who could possibly rank above Charlton Heston? Number 1, Audie Murphy. If this list were based only on movie performances, several legendary names could have claimed the top spot. But this countdown isn't about acting. It's about real-life toughness. And by that standard, no Hollywood actor has a story quite like Audie Murphy. Before he ever stood in front of a movie camera, Murphy had already become one of the most highly decorated American soldiers of World War II. Despite his small stature, he displayed extraordinary courage under impossible circumstances, repeatedly risking his own life to protect fellow soldiers. His battlefield heroics earned him numerous military decorations and transformed him into a national hero before he was even old enough to legally order a drink. When the war ended, Murphy faced a challenge that many veterans understood all too well, adjusting to civilian life. Hollywood soon recognized his remarkable story and offered him opportunities on screen. Unlike many actors portraying war heroes, Murphy had actually lived through the experiences audiences were watching. That authenticity could never be taught. Every time he wore a military uniform in a film, viewers weren't simply watching an actor perform. They were watching someone who understood the fear, responsibility, and sacrifice behind every scene. Yet the greatest battles of his life didn't end when the war did. Like many combat veterans, Murphy struggled with painful memories of everything he had witnessed. Rather than hiding those struggles forever, he eventually spoke publicly about the invisible wounds carried by returning soldiers. At a time when few people openly discuss the emotional impact of war, Murphy helped bring attention to the challenges veterans face long after coming home. That courage may have been even greater than anything he accomplished on the battlefield. His legacy reminds us that true toughness isn't measured only by physical strength. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is admit they need help while continuing to move forward. Audie Murphy wasn't simply playing heroes. He had already earned that title long before Hollywood ever knew his name. Honorable mention, Danny Trejo. Although much of today's countdown focus on Hollywood's classic era, one modern actor deserves recognition. Danny Trejo's early life was filled with crime, addiction, and years spent inside prison. Many expected his story to end there. Instead, he completely transformed his life. After overcoming addiction, Trejo dedicated himself to helping others avoid the mistakes he had made. What began as mentoring eventually opened unexpected doors into the film industry. Ironically, the man who became famous for playing intimidating villains is widely described by friends and co-workers as one of Hollywood's kindest and most generous people. His journey proves that toughness isn't only about surviving hardship. It's about changing your future. Conclusion. Looking back at these remarkable lives, one thing becomes clear. The toughest actors in Hollywood history weren't fearless because they never faced hardship. They were fearless because hardship had already tested them. Some survived brutal poverty. Some endured the horrors of war. Others overcame devastating injuries, illness, personal tragedy, or impossible odds that could have ended their careers or even their lives. When audiences watched Robert Mitchum's quiet confidence, Charles Bronson's intimidating presence, John Wayne's determination, Steve McQueen's fearless attitude, or Audie Murphy's authenticity, they weren't witnessing carefully manufactured movie magic. They were seeing pieces of real lives. That may explain why these legendary performers continue to captivate audiences decades after many of their films were released. Their greatest performances weren't built on special effects or clever dialogue. They were built on experience. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson these Hollywood legends leave behind. Real toughness isn't about looking invincible. It's about standing back up after life knocks you down. Again, and again, and again. So, which actor on today's list surprised you the most? Do you think someone else deserved a place in the top 10? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this countdown and want more untold stories from Hollywood's greatest legends, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.